I want to welcome you this evening to the Audit and Finance Committee meeting for June 29th. And it's a beautiful, beautiful night out. And hopefully we will be out in time to enjoy some of it. All right, so now, Ms. Kennedy, would you mind taking attendance?
Sure, Madam Chairwoman. Ms. Willingham,
Present.
Peter,
Here.
Bergdorf,
Here.
Clay,
Here.
Grimm,
Here.
Ray Joyce,
Here.
Lakakis,
Here.
Mayo,
Here.
and Camisso.
Here.
All present, Madam Chairwoman.
Oh, great, great, great.
Look at you, Maggie.
And this evening, we're joined by the Minority Leader, Mr. Moriello. All right, so let us begin.
Item 1 is approving the previous minutes.
I make a motion for this, Madam Chair.
I'll second.
I got a motion, I got a second from Ms. Lakakis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, unanimous. I'm sorry.
Item 2 is adopting a debt policy for Albany County. Commissioner Riley is here this evening.
I have Comptroller as well.
Madam Chair? There have been some back and forth on including some additional reporting on this. We've come to the conclusion that it should be a separate RLA. The debt policy in front of you is what was originally presented. I'll be supporting moving this. We've talked about it quite a few times, but obviously if there's any questions for the Comptroller and Dave Riley, it's perfectly fine. But I just wanted to make that statement because there have been a back and forth.
And just a point of clarification, an old version of the debt policy is actually on Granicus and in the agenda. So section 12 is no longer in there. That's the portion that will be addressed by a separate RLA.
But to clarify, everything else is unchanged.
Scratch 12.
So the floor is yours,
We'll update
Mr.
that.
Riley. Please speak up
Well,
clearly.
Madam Chairwoman, not to belabor it, because we do have a fairly long agenda. This would put into place a debt policy, some baseline rules, as we've discussed in the past few meetings, on county issuance of debt, how much debt we'll take on, things along those lines. But unless there are specific questions, I don't need to take up too much of your time.
Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, if there are none, I'd move this.
First one to acknowledge Ms. Rizzo.
Can I just,
Just in case you had something you wanted to say. Okay, yeah.
did we update this for Granicus, or did I miss that?
Section
The
12.
the version that's on there is accidentally an older version. that
Oh,
was-
okay, because I was looking
Yep.
for
Section 12
there to
is
be
not-
no section 12.
Yes,
And
there's,
okay.
That's what we're
everything
showing.
else
We're
is
on
exactly the
note
same.
Okay, good.
There's
That's why
no 12 and it will be
excuse me.
updated for the agenda for the meeting.
I'm
don't
from the
worry.
country, I get confused. Thank you for that clarification.
All right, great. I did get a motion from Mr. Peter. I
Second.
got a second from Mr. Clay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Item 3 is amending the 2023 District Attorney's Office budget for administrative adjustments. The DA Soares and Chris Horn are here.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have two matters before you, each of which have an absolute neutral effect on the budget. Which one do we have on first?
Which one's first, Discovery or
Would you like to-
The Discovery.
Okay. As you all are aware, there were grants that were provided to Albany County for purposes of discovery. The grants were distributed to, I believe, Department of Probation, as well as our office. However, when those dollars came into the county, they came in to a line that prohibits our ability to use those dollars as it was intended. All of the dollars associated for our grant came in under the line A91165.4.412. That line expressly prohibits the spending of any of those resources on either personnel or equipment, and we have submitted a request to allow for us to move some of those dollars into other lines involving overtime, enhanced pay, and computer equipment that would have a negligible impact on the budget.
Mr. Peter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Makes perfect sense, the overtime, computer equipment, no doubt, makes perfect sense. On the enhanced pay, and I asked this of all departments when we talk about it in budget, is the enhanced pay for people working at a line, or are we looking to use that enhanced pay to permanently, or use it to temporarily enhance their salaries, and then we're looking to potentially next year in the budget, keep that line salary?
Every grant that we will be proposing to this body will have the following elements. It's going to be retention is part of our strategy, and all of the retention dollars associated, which means increases, are going to be grant funded. We've not provided any enhanced pays that are not paid for by a specific grant, be it Discovery, be it Give, or any of the other grants that we have in the office.
But no, it wouldn't change the salary for those lines, it's just on top of the salary.
Right, but I guess just a clarification, because I'm pretty sure we're on the same page, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So, let's say the grant goes away,
Correct.
right? What happens, right? As the budget approaches this year, would you be asking for that person's salary to go up to it, or is it just based on the extra work attached to this grant?
Just the extra work.
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Do I have any other questions? Yes,
No.
Mr. Clay?
Motion.
All right.
Second.
I got a motion from Mr. Clay, I got a second from Mr. Bergdorf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Item 4 is authorizing the submission of a grant application and an agreement with New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services regarding the gun-involved violence and elimination grant and amending the 2023 District Attorney's Office budget.
The office is also in receipt of give funding from the Division of Criminal Justice Services, which enable our office, along with the Albany Police Department, as well as our other partners, the Sheriff's Department and Probation, to combat gun violence. We have already been notified as to the amounts that we're receiving, that the grant has in fact been awarded. We are seeking authorization to apply for it. We're seeking authorization to enter into that agreement with DCJS, in addition to allowing us to actually spend those resources.
Mr. Peter?
No, this is an ongoing grant, I believe, as I was just clarifying, 8 years. It makes perfect sense to continue it. I'd make a motion, although I think
Mr. Bergdorf?
I just have a question. Dave, I see the resolution description where the increase is going to be, senior gun prosecutor 39, gun prosecutor 34. If it's not too secret, can you tell me what intelligence ADA means?
As you know, the governor has enhanced funding for what we call the CRAC, the Capital Region Crime Analysis Center.
Oh, okay,
And
great.
the Crime Analysis Center is now endeavoring to trace every single shell casing that is involved in a crime. And so we are going to get more information on specific guns because of the traces that are returned to us. And therefore, we're looking to have a prosecutor who's also going to be involved in that aspect of our case and gun processing in the office. And so that's what the intelligence position is for.
Now I'll second it.
I got a motion from Mr. Peter. I got a second from Mr. Bergdorf. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great evening.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Item 5 is amending the 2023 Probation Department budget for collective bargaining adjustments. Director Bill Connors is here this evening.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members. This agreement actually was issued last month by the DGS Commissioner, an agreement between DGS and CSEA. And we have 10 probation staff that are included in the CSEA agreement that were not included at that time. So this is just a request to amend the salary increases for probation staff.
Madam Chair, if there are no questions, I make a motion on this.
Second.
I got a motion from Mr. Peter. I got a second from Mr. Camiso. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 6 is amending the 2023 Stormwater Coalition budget for administrative adjustments. And it looks like Samir Madazra is here.
Hello. Thank you, committee. My name is Samir Badasra. I'm from Management and Budget. So this request is coming, it stems from the last 2 quarterly meetings of the Stormwater Coalition, in which it was voted and decided to reallocate some of the budgeted funds towards the director position. The coalition is currently looking for a candidate for their, the coalition is currently looking for a candidate for their director position. So this is a measure to enhance the list of potential candidates. This is a budget neutral change. If you have any questions, let me know.
Any questions? No questions? Okay, I got a motion from Mr. Peter. I got a second from Mr. Clay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7 is amending resolution numbers 489 and 490 for 2021 as amended regarding New York State Homes and Community Renewal Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funding. And Mr. Alderson is here this evening.
Good evening, committee members. I'm here with Will, what's your last name? Sekula from the Land Bank. So this is a 7.5-month no-cost extension on the Community Development Block Grant Program that was previously awarded in November of 2021. The grant total is $1.3 million. And this 7.5-month no-cost extension will take us through almost the end of December to December 29th. And I'll turn it over to Will to kind of give an update on the land bank's portion of the project.
Yeah, so when we originally came to the end of 2021, we were expecting to do 3 full rehabs on 2nd Avenue in Albany South End, 45, 48, and 50 2nd Avenue. About 900,000 of that million was for construction itself. We were able to go out and get our architect. We were able to draw up all the drawings on budget, all that stuff. We put those drawings out to bid. We went out to local organizations. We went to the New York State contractor website, made sure to get as much circulation as possible. Both is required by the grant and beyond that. Fortunately, what we got back was the lowest qualified bidder ended up bidding $2 million for the 3 buildings for the rehabs. So we did go back to HCR and asked for that extra $1 million, which was rejected. We asked for the extra to do 2 buildings to finish 48 2nd Avenue, 50 2nd Avenue, which they rejected. But they did allow us to revise the scope to do 1 full rehab of 50 2nd Avenue, which would be a 2-unit, 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath homeowner unit with a studio apartment as an affordable rental. We were able to, they approved that revised scope, and also approved an extension to complete the work to December of this year. Thus far, we've gotten all our approvals, the local approvals, the state approvals, our own land bank approvals. We have the contractor on board, and at this point, we know that we can finish the revised scope by the end of the year. And this is not in a vacuum. This is very close to other projects that the land bank is working on, both new home ownership in that neighborhood as well as affordable rentals. So that's kind of what happened. Both construction prices, labor costs end up being higher than we had originally anticipated, and they have gone up.
And you're just basically looking, just to clarify, you're just looking for an extension of the original contract, because you had to go back a couple times, modify the grant, no additional monies to the county, and you're just looking for approval to extend that so we can finish the 1 building.
Yes.
Yes.
So this doesn't have anything to do with the expansion of the mental health services? This is solely on the construction?
This will just be a rehab of an existing residential structure. It'll be a residential structure.
So legislator, to answer your question, there's two aspects of this almost $1.4 million grant. $1 million of it is for the land bank, and then 400,000 of it, just under 400,000 of it, is for mental health projects. Some of those are also being extended, and you're gonna see a presentation by the Department of Mental Health next month. They're gonna be requesting a budget amendment to kind of retool the scope of some of the projects that they've been working on. At a high level, there was about $100,000 that were subawarded from this grant to the Albany LEAD initiative. That's been spent. There was a patient services coordinating committee, kind of a coordinator type role that was funded by this grant. They've hired somebody who's been in that role, so there's just a little bit of a delayed start. So they're gonna be closing that out hopefully by the end of December and really trying to spend down the remainder of this grant. There was an initiative for like opioid overdose prevention in the hill towns that had to be retooled a little bit, so the scope of work changed on that. And then the fourth kind of mental health project under this grant was to increase some of the staffing capacity of the Accord program, but that's having to be rethought as well, just because the Department of Mental Health hasn't rolled out the program as quickly as we would have liked.
Thank you. And Mr. Bergdorf?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to go back to the $1 million piece for the land bank. So, tell me if I'm wrong, and please correct me. We were gonna do 3 buildings,
Yep.
and then we tried to reduce the scope to two buildings?
Well, we would have needed additional funds to do
Okay,
that.
no. I'm just trying to figure out, we came up with a project budget, which was gonna handle all 3.
Yep, $1 million.
$1 million. So then, we ratcheted it down to 2, but it still needed more money, more than the $1 million. Now we're down to 1.
One full building rehab,
Yeah.
which will be sold to a first-time home buyer, and then the second building we'll use whatever's left of that $1 million, basically to get it structurally sound, and then we'd be looking at other grants to finish that one.
I guess what I'm wondering about is, we're spending $1 million on one house. Something is wrong with the process. And I know it's easy to sit here and say that, and I do understand a little bit about construction, but I don't know where you got your engineer's estimates in the beginning, where you had your budget. And I realize that things are more expensive now, and labor is more expensive, and all of that. But $1 million for one building? And we're hopefully going to rent it out for or we're gonna sell it
It'll be sold to a first-time home buyer.
for a first-time home
We'll
buyer.
live there, yeah.
And what will we sell it for to a first-time home buyer?
Probably somewhere in the area of 175.
So we're gonna spend $1 million. We're gonna renovate a building, and then we're gonna sell it for $175,000. I would suggest to you that something is wrong.
Well, I think there's a couple other parts to this, which I would also.
And I understand the escalation and the like, and I understand
But
making
even-
an investment to give people.
Yeah, but there's other things, like, for example, older houses with remediation, if you have to tear down, rehab, doing certain things like that. And
I
also,
get
there's
that.
also a net cost, which is one of the things we talk about blight, right?
Yeah.
We talk about why there's blighted buildings, which then have to constantly be checked on, inspected, police are called, and things of that nature. I mean, these are all costs that go into it.
I understand all of that, and I appreciate all of that. But if this is the model that we have going forward,
Well, this grant in particular does have additional costs associated that, you wouldn't necessarily
Okay.
get with other state funding. This is federal funding. So the other projects we're doing, we do expect to be a little bit less expensive, but we're still talking about to do a modest single-family home in neighborhoods that had severe disinvestment over the decades. Costs about $400,000 to build. You can sell that at $150 maybe. So the grant funding is very important to fill those things. I do agree that CDBG is not the most efficient funds, but we do see this as part of a bigger project.
Go ahead.
I'd also just add quick two things. One, this is community development block grant money, which has very specific things. We have to spend it from the feds. So there's one part of that. The second is, one of the reasons why the land bank is important in some of the rehab stuff is that when you're dealing with houses that are in a row, the limitations and the architectural is much different than building on like a cul-de-sac, right? It's very different. And the problem is that unless you fill in those gaps in the smile, so to speak, they will always be vacant because the numbers don't work otherwise. And that leads to further disinvestment along it, and then it leads to blight upon blight upon blight, which has secondary effects, not only on the residents, but also on county taxes, which of course are, if everyone's taxes go lower, and it creates the other issues, which, but, and I understand your concern.
I appreciate all of that, and I'm gonna vote for this in this instance, but I'd like someone to kind of rethink the model so that, you know, we're not faced with this sort of thing again. Or, you know, and I realize that's impossible to say. I understand building between two common walls.
Right.
And there's structural issues, and there are all sorts of issues, demolition, and there are costs that nobody building a single-family house would ever incur. But, you know, it's kind of stark, $1 million to sell for $175 for a one-time home buyer, first-time home buyer.
So, let me just say this. I made that initial comment when I first
I
heard
think
about
I
this.
remember you making that.
Yes, however, my sister, who lives and represents that area, she had quite a bit to say about it to me. And the condition of that area of Second Avenue. I know that there's an old school down there.
School number 17.
Yeah, yes. And so there's a lot that really goes into trying to do something to revitalize that neighborhood. So it's just not so easy just to tear down a building and then just to do something with it. We also know too that a lot of those lots or those buildings, they're no longer qualified to build a house on them. But some of those structures down there, especially that school, is it's going to take a lot, but not only that, from the way she explained it to me, it's going to be vital in bringing that community back down there. As she calls it, the historic South End. She lives right off of Second Avenue on Grandview Terrace. And so she has invested many of her years of representation in that area. You can see a lot of, I would say millions of dollars put over and over on Clinton Avenue. Every 5-6 years, it seemed like to me. So I think that, you know, we need to rethink and understand what the costs are now. When the pandemic came in, I couldn't even get a front door for under $2,000. And then I still didn't get it because after a year and a half, they didn't have anybody to bring it out of the warehouse. So the only thing I'm saying is this. I think that, you know, this is going to be, in the end, it's going to be a worthwhile project. And we got to take advantage of this money while they're giving it to us.
Well, I just have one more question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this concerns me. I thought the idea of the land bank was to reinvest in properties and increase their value and then be sufficient. Because we've been pitching a lot of money into the land bank over the years. And now I'm hearing that we're willing to spend $1 million so we can sell a house for 175.
It's not our money.
It's not our money.
It's not our money.
It's federal money and it's
Well,
got
well, that's taxpayer money.
strings attached to it. Well, you're right.
But that's what it's out there for. Why can't we get it instead of somebody else? That's how I'm looking
Well,
at
I
it.
think it's a model that is somewhat problematic, and this requires further scrutiny going forward, I would say.
I would say this. If you lived in that area and understood the value of what it's going to actually bring to that neighborhood. Some parts of the city of Albany have just debilitated to the point where it's going to take more money than what we would realize. And so, with that said, come on, motion.
I have one, I didn't get,
You-
I
you
yielded
get-
to Mr.
Thank you.
Grimm, but I do have one more question.
A
And-
question?
And it's for, really for the
Okay.
land bank, but from a public policy point of view, people may be interested in it. Whoever that first-time home buyer is, just won a lottery ticket. Because they're gonna get, for 175 grand, they're gonna get $1 million home. Now, it may not be worth $1 million in the market, but it's gonna be worth substantially more than the other houses around it. Do you have any protections built into your agreements as to how long somebody has to stay there, or a clawback provision or anything like that? That would make me feel a lot more
Very
comfortable.
strict affordability restrictions as well as time before they can sell, so.
Oh, so there are restrictions, time before they can sell, because,
Yeah, the federal restrictions are stronger than any other
well,
restrictions.
I guess the point I'm making, whoever chooses who that lucky first-time home buyer is, you know, I hope the process is good.
Well, you know, we gotta look at it like this, America, you know, the greatest place in the world to live. All right, so.
And I'd also note, we tend to throw money at brownfields for private developers, and we never really question what the actual taxable value is on that one, but we tend to throw money at that, but not for neighborhoods that need it the most, so I'll make a motion.
I
A
seconded
motion?
it already.
Oh, you made, okay, so then I'll give you the motion.
All right, I'll take the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, and I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 8 is authorizing the conveyance of various parcels of real property located in the cities of Albany and Cohoes to the Albany County Land Bank Corporation.
It's not Bill. It's Bill's song, though.
Is that a phone?
It's my son FaceTiming me from Raleigh, North Carolina, so
Good to know.
it's an iPad.
He wants to buy that house for 175 grand.
I was watching this on YouTube.
Let's see if that actually happens.
Yeah, he's watching
See, I'll see
YouTube,
if
he
he'll
wants
live in
that, he wants that house.
neighborhood.
I'll bid 180.
Message, can I call?
Okay.
Sorry.
So Madam Chairwoman, you're gonna have us for a couple items here in a row. This first one here is a transfer of a half dozen parcels to the land bank. It's pretty vanilla. There's a spreadsheet on the last page of I'm out of work. But it's, I believe, 4 properties in Albany and 2 in Cohoes, if I remember correctly.
These are properties, they already have existing requests for them, so the land bank will serve as the means by which we can have a public offering of the property without getting into the sticky situation of picking an individual constituent.
No further questions.
I make a motion, or second, Ms. Lakakis.
Okay, got a motion from Ms. Lakakis. I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Number 9. Unanimous in number 9.
Number 9 is rescinding the conveyance of real property pursuant to resolution number 439 for 2020 and authorizing the conveyance of real property located at 236 Ontario Street in the city of Albany.
So, Madam Chairwoman, this is stated, this is 236 Ontario Street in Albany. This is to rescind the authorization to the land bank and to authorize a transfer to the American Dream Community Partnership Group. They're nonprofit. They are paying $10,000 for it. It's going to be used for low-income housing.
I'd make a motion.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Mr. Peter. I got a second from Mr. Clay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Item 10 is authorizing the conveyance of real property located at 138 South Hawk Street in the city of Albany.
So, Madam Chair, as stated, this is transfer 138 South Hawk Street. This is under the provision of the disposition policy that states that an abutting owner can receive a parcel. The requesting party they live at 168 Catherine, so they're around the corner. It's $1,500, and she's already currently maintaining the property.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Ms. Lakakis. I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Item 11 is authorizing the conveyance of real property known as Niles Road Extension in the town of Rensselaerville.
So Madam Chair, as stated, this is known as Niles Road Extension in the town of Rensselaerville. Is similar to the last one, it is an abutting property owner. This is a $500 offer, and they're going to fold it into their existing parcel to collapse it into one parcel.
Motion.
Second.
I got a motion from Mr. Peter, I got a second from Ms. Lakakis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Item 12 is amending the 2023 Albany County budget for administrative adjustments.
Yep, so Madam Chair, I'm gonna ask Mr. Alderson to come up and assist me with this one, because he's the one that put it together.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So, the Department of Management and Budget undertook kind of what I call an organizational assessment to really identify where there's some critical gaps within how the Department of Management and Budget, and by extension the county, is going to be able to provide services and kind of project manage some new sources of revenue that we've taken in. One of these is, no surprise to you, $60 million in ARPA funds. And while we're working with a consultant to date to kind of set up the framework, get all the money out, we're realizing quickly that there's going to be a lot of compliance-related tails on the back end once these projects are finally approved and awards go out. So on a quarterly basis, we're going to need to do get a lot of reporting from these on these projects with who we're doing business with. We're going to need, for a lot of our subawardees, we're going to need to do on-site kind of desk audits of their financial practices. And all of these it's very crucial for us to be working with our consultant for all of these tasks. But we're quickly realizing in speaking to other counties that they went out and they hired like full teams to strictly manage ARPA soup to nuts. And we're noticing that with kind of our own staff, we're stretched a little thin. And we think from a long-term planning standpoint, it would be beneficial to kind of start building a team around the grants unit within the Department of Management and Budget, and really starting to streamline and centralize how the county manages its grant funding at a kind of at an enterprise level. So while we certainly have capacity within departments to manage their existing grants, a $60 million grant program that lives through the end of 2026, that's definitely going to be a lot of compliance requirements that need to be fulfilled, and we can sure as heck bet that at some point the county's going to be audited, and when that happens, we'd like to kind of have all of our ducks in a row, and we think that adding these two positions amongst a couple others, which I'm going to talk about later, are going to truly allow us to be successful when that time comes. And I think it's going to set the right foundation for having kind of a centralized grants management process across the county. So while these two new positions are going to be focused on ARPA-related compliance and kind of understanding what projects are being awarded out, what programs are going to be managed in-house by the county, including the county departments, helping them be compliant with the federal grant requirements is going to be super important. So really having these two positions to play like a liaisonship role will truly help us. And these are funded by earnings and interest that has accumulated on the ARPA funds. Commissioner Riley, as in conjunction with the Comptroller's Office, has done a great job at investing the money kind of while we were deliberating on final usage of the funds. So we've generated a significant amount of revenue through that, and yes, these positions, at least through the end of 2026, would be budget neutral, and we're only requesting them through the end of 2026.
Yeah, the cost of these positions is actually less than the interest that was, through the life of them, through the end of the rescue plan funds, will be less than the interest earned while the money sat in our bank accounts while we were waiting to get the projects off the ground.
All right.
So changing, I keep going if it would be helpful. No, there's two other positions that are being added, all budget neutral.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, this is best practice on every county and city that's done this through ARPA. No one can do compliance with existing staff, given the sheer amount of this. It makes perfect sense. It's budget neutral. I'd make a motion.
I've got some questions, Madam Chair.
I got a motion from Mr. Peter, and I got a second from Mr. Graham.
No, no, his questions.
Oh, you, oh,
No,
I'm sorry.
questions, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are these civil service jobs or political appointments?
There would need to be an examination done by the Department of Civil Service to see whether these titles are testable. Most of them would be testable, so they are civil service positions.
So we're spending money to hire people to spend more money, is essentially what we're talking about here?
We're spending money that we earned through passive interest income to maintain compliance so the feds don't come and claw back $60 million on us.
So there's no, in the ARPA money, and so there's a lot of it, there's no ability to use that for people to process the ARPA funds?
That's the interest.
We could have done that, but this is literally taking the interest that we earned off of it sitting in our bank account. We'll pay for these grant positions for the life of the positions.
So indirectly, you're using the pot of money from ARPA, the interest money
Yep.
to transfer, and that's why it's budget neutral?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you, Madam Chair.
I have a motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Peter.
I have a second.
I got a second from Mr. Cactus. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 13 is amending resolution numbers 158 for 2021 and 540 for 2022 regarding the Albany Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program and amending the 2023 Albany County budget.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is a request for permission to authorize Trinity Alliance of the Capital Region to be the project management host agency and community engagement service agency for the Albany Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion Program, LEAD.
All right. You said this is for Trinity Alliance.
Yes.
The total is for Trinity?
Right, so it's just the remainder of it, which is 167, that's going towards Trinity, is that correct?
Right.
All right. Okay.
Motion.
Okay,
Second.
I got a motion from Mr. Clay, I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Item 14 is authorizing an agreement with Barton and Judith regarding professional services for the Albany County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Mr. Mullock?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, forgive me, I'm sitting in for my always more knowledgeable colleague Luke Rogers, but every 5 years, we're required to revisit our hazard mitigation plan. This is simply a contract authorization to engage Barton and LaJudas in that process, begin the process of reaching out to municipalities and updating our plan.
Okay. Mr. Bergdorf.
Mike, has Barton and Judas done this before?
Yes, they have.
So they did our last 5-year
I
plan?
believe it was the last one, yes.
And does that get annual updates or anything, or it needs a 5-year fresh up?
Yeah, so there's a team at the county that reviews the plan and updates it on an annual basis, and then every 5 years is required to be redone and resubmitted to FEMA. We typically use
Okay.
a consultant to do that.
Now, when it says revenue amount 170, is that like FEMA money or?
Correct.
So that's,
90%, so the total contract is $189,000.
Yeah.
90% of the cost is covered by the federal government. We pick up the last 10%.
fine, thank you.
I'd make a motion.
I got a motion from Mr. Peter, I got a second from Mr. Clay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Right. There's an additional two items. Item 15 is the public hearing for the capital plan from 2024 to 2028. And
So
there are
ma-
copies of the capital plan both on Granicus and in hard copy if you need them.
So Madam Chair, this is an annual request that we come to you with. This is the 5-year capital improvement plan for the county. This is for years 2024 to 2028. One thing that I stated last year, and I'd like to reiterate again because it came up during the capital committee meeting that we had on June 15th, is just a reminder that this is not obligating the county to spend any money.
Right.
This is not costing the county any money. This can be amended in the future. We've had mid-year adjustments in certain years. This is simply providing the long-term kind of goal, or the long-term kind of game plan here. There are some projects that may seem kind of large in here. I don't want to dive into every single project, but like the sewer district specifically, there are some very large projects in there. We're putting the entirety of the project in there with the hope of, by showing that the county is backing this project, that we can then leverage it for state and federal grants, EFC grants, things along those lines, to bring down those total numbers. So what you see here is an absolute theoretical maximum spend. It will not be this high.
And we're only voting right now tonight for the public hearing.
Correct.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Bergeron.
just a quick request and observation, totally in support of this. Having reviewed this year after year after year after year, and with the length of the document and the amount of specificity, once we get one that's adopted after the public, can you kind of stamp that one and then propose changes put in red or something like that?
Okay.
So that as we go to iterative changes and reviews, or at the capital facilities review plan, meetings, it easily stands out what's old, what's new, what's amended, et
Yeah,
cetera.
we can definitely work towards that. One of the things that we've done in the last couple of years is we actually, in each project, when they're listed as amended, below that, it will actually have the amendment of what specifically is changing, whether it's a timeline change, a dollar change, a scope change, things along those lines. But yeah, we can work towards that.
Thank you.
All right. Do you
Madam
have a
Chair,
question?
questions, yeah.
Okay, Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
thank
Mr.
you.
Graham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, first of all, you've come up with an idea to code these things. So for example, if we want to know how much money we're spending on the MVP arena, that would be under a certain code. So that's a really strong step for transparency. I salute you, Commissioner Raleigh, for that.
Well, I
This is-
also was
yeah.
able to do it. We did one set of coding in my office, but then we were also worked with the comptroller's office. This was the ad we did after the meeting, where the actual bonds, if they've been sold, are listed as well.
Yeah, because capital plan's a lot of money. It's $500 million this year. It's a big jump from last year. But the hope is that we have to show other governments that we're serious, and that's how government funding works sometimes. We're able to recoup some of those funds.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I got a motion from Mr. Camiso. I got a second.
Second.
I got a second from Mr. Peter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
And then item 16 is the capital plan itself, and we need to vote to table.
Motion. Or seconded.
We got a motion and a second.
Whichever.
What do you say?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
All in favor?